The Airbus A330 was designed as a marvel of modern engineering. Packed with overlapping computer protections and advanced fly-by-wire technology, it was an aircraft so highly automated that experts joked it practically flew itself. Air France Flight 447 was supposed to be a completely routine red-eye. Cruising smoothly on autopilot from Rio de Janeiro to Paris, the aircraft was navigating the dark skies over the Atlantic Ocean. Then, it simply vanished. There was no mayday call to air traffic control, no trace of a structural explosion on radar, and no witnesses. The aircraft and the 228 people on board were gone. It took nearly 2 years of dragging sonar across the mountainous ocean floor for search teams to miraculously locate the aircraft's data recorders. The data inside revealed a terrifying truth. The plane didn't break apart, and it didn't suffer an attack. It fell from the sky because human instinct and computer logic fatally collided. 3 hours into the journey, the aircraft flew into a high-altitude storm system, triggering an invisible threat in the pitch-black sky. The storm contained supercooled water, liquid drops that remain unfrozen until they strike a surface. In seconds, these ice crystals clogged the aircraft's pitot tubes. These forward-facing tubes measure the air rushing past the plane to determine its speed. Blinded by the ice, the computers lost their airspeed. They filled with a barrage of loud, flashing alarms and disconnecting systems. This sensory overload triggered what investigators called the startle effect. Overwhelmed and disoriented by the alarms, the 32-year-old co-pilot grabbed his flight control stick and pulled all the way backward. This forced the massive jet into an aggressive 7,000 foot per minute climb. Up in the incredibly thin atmosphere of cruising altitude, the engines cannot support that kind of angle. The aircraft's forward speed rapidly bleeds off. The computer had handed over a perfectly stable airplane. In fact, the ice on the sensors melted less than a minute later. But that panicked physical reaction overrode the safe handoff, setting the flight on a fatal trajectory. When speed drops, smooth air flowing over the wing breaks apart. The plane loses lift entirely, entering a stall. The wings stop flying, and the jet begins a vertical freefall. Escaping this requires pushing the nose down to regain speed and restore lift. The pilots failed to execute this life-saving maneuver because they were trapped by a fatal miscommunication in the aircraft's user interface. Airbus sidesticks are not physically linked together. As the co-pilot pulled his stick backward to pitch the nose up, the older, more experienced captain sitting right next to him was completely unaware of what his hands were doing. With the nose held high, the aircraft's forward speed plummeted to an astonishing 60 knots during the plunge. This graph tracks speed against computer logic. Software assumes speed under 60 knots is impossible, so crossing that line disables the stall warning. Tragically, when pilots occasionally pushed the nose down, gaining speed pushed them back above 60 knots, immediately reactivating the terrifying alarm. The computer was inadvertently punishing the crew with a screaming auditory warning every time they took the exact right aerodynamic action. The very automation designed to protect the aircraft effectively gaslit the crew, hiding the true aerodynamic danger and sealing their fate. The captain finally realized they were in a deep stall and ordered the co-pilot to push the nose down. But they had completely run out of altitude to correct the error. In just 3.5 minutes, the jet fell 38,000 feet, crashing violently into the Atlantic. The ice that triggered the entire chain of events melted seconds after the crisis began. The plane was perfectly functional, but was destroyed purely by human factors and cognitive overload. The loss of Flight 447 forced an industry-wide overhaul. Today, aviation regulators mandate that all commercial pilots actively train for manual, high-altitude stall recovery without relying on computer assistance. Despite the near perfection of modern flight software, the ultimate safety net preventing a catastrophe is not a microchip. It is the human being holding the control.